retorna aí.
Então, vamos ver.
Acho que ele teve algum problema de conexão, né? Como normalmente acontece.
Só entrei no chat, já comecem a falar de onde vocês estão, né? A gente já está com a sala bem cheia aqui. Ricardo voltou.
O que é mais interessante sobre passar vergonha é que a gente gosta de passar vergonha globalmente. A gente fecha a janela do webinar, assim, quando falamos de presença internacional. Então, boa noite a todos. Perdão pela interrupção, se por acaso interrompi a transmissão de alguém além da minha. Tá? Bem, novamente, boa noite, Lívia, boa noite, Edson, boa noite, Janet, boa noite, Michel. Tá? Como eu dizia, o Edson, nós vamos abusar um pouco do Edson hoje, que além de ter contribuído com toda a tradução do conteúdo técnico da Janet Moyer, também apresentado pela Michelle, nós abusaremos do Edson para que ele faça a tradução simultânea em toda a conversa. Então, mandem mensagens no chat, mandem suas perguntas, tá? O Edson será nosso grande tradutor nessa noite, né, Edson?
Exatamente. Grande prazer estar aqui novamente e com duas figuras aí famosas no mundo aí da iluminação de paisagismo. É um grande prazer, né? Uma grande honra a gente poder participar desse evento.
Bem, muito bom, estamos bastante orgulhosos em recebê-las. E, enfim, agradecendo também a presença de todos vocês que estão chegando aqui na sala, tá? E, por favor, mandem seus abraços, podem mandar suas perguntas, comentários. Eu já tenho aqui alguns alôs de alguns amigos que agradeceram pela presença. Meu amigo Eduardo Becker, lá no Rio Grande do Sul, tá? Que agradeceu demais por a gente promover esse evento. Tá? Também o grande, assim, vamos fazer um webinar só de abraços, de tantos amigos especiais que temos aqui hoje. Tá? Edson, obrigado por contribuir, tá? com essa tradução simultânea e também com toda a tradução do conteúdo.
Vamos lá.
Já temos comentários para as nossas palestrantes? No chat já temos a luz para as nossas palestrantes? Não temos ainda.
O chat está liberado, Ricardo? O pessoal está mandando mensagem pelo QA.
Nós temos então que pedir para o nosso diretor liberar o chat. Diretor, libera o chat, por favor.
Diretor de operações.
Sim. Edson, a gente pode contextualizar, a Michelle e a Janet, o que está acontecendo exatamente enquanto...
Janet and Michelle, we are dealing with some technical problems. Of course, the technology have these issues, but we are opening the chat for some people can ask and make some comments about the event of this night.
E a parte muito boa disso, Edson, por favor, gostaria de deixar para as nossas convidadas, que temos aqui Boa Noite do Brasil, temos o Fernando Mazetti, lá de Buenos Aires, dando boa noite, tá? Buenas noches, tá? Danila Takaki também, nosso querido Vicente Scopacasa, espetacular Vicente Scopacasa, Helder Rodrigo, a Daniele de Prata de Argento. Olha, a gente tem gente do Brasil inteiro, também de fora do Brasil por aqui.
Janet and Michelle, we have also people from other countries here in South America, like Argentina. What else? we always have a person from Chile also, and so on.
Great, that's wonderful.
Yeah. Yes.
Muito bom, muito bom. Você tem grandes admiradores aqui do seu trabalho na América Latina, Janet. Muito bom. Tá. Bem, olha, eu estou recebendo mais mensagens do Rio de Janeiro, por aí vai, isso é muito legal. Só contextualizando, hoje chegamos à conclusão do Iluminação no Paisagismo. Tá? Também estamos muito felizes com o recorde de participações que tivemos nessa série, não é, Lívia? Sem contar que encerramos esse conteúdo com os maiores nomes da iluminação no paisagismo. Tá? Obrigados a todos pelo prestígio. Aliás, quem perdeu algum módulo, vá até o nosso canal no YouTube ou assista aos outros módulos apresentados pela Lívia Gontijo, que está aqui conosco, lá no nosso site, tá? Como tradicionalmente fizemos todas as noites desse longo inverno, aliás, dessa longa primavera de paisagismo, iluminação do paisagismo, tá? Quem quiser concorrer a um quiz da Interlight, basta fazer um post no Instagram, marcando o perfil @interlight.oficial. Nós divulgaremos amanhã no Instagram da Interlight o nome da sorteada ou sorteado. E, pessoal, é super importante lembrar, tá, que para ter maior interatividade nessa apresentação, você deve estar logada ou logado no Zoom. Tá? E nós temos também os certificados, e para você receber os certificados de participação dessa palestra, é fundamental que você assista pelo Zoom, para que a gente tenha as suas informações. Tá? E para você que está no YouTube ou no Instagram, tá? O ID desse webinar no Zoom é 883-7702-5481. Vamos lá?
Repita, Ricardo.
Muito bom, Lívia. 883-7702-5481.
Bom, vou cumprimentar aqui, tem muitas pessoas entrando, gente do Brasil inteiro e também de fora do Brasil, né? Então, vou mandar alguns abraços aqui. Arquiteto Iones, aqui, paisagista Graziela Fleury, da Jardim Fleury de Paisagismo.
Um trabalho lindo.
Temos aqui também... estou no aeroporto a caminho de Sampa para a Expo Lux, né? Então, tem a Cecília aqui que mandou essa mensagem, Cecília Barbosa. Especializada em iluminação em Salvador, José Novaes, Fabíola Costa de São Paulo, Arimelo da Inove Rio, Paulo César da Design Paisagista. Gente, um grande abraço a todos que estão presentes aí. Para a gente é mais uma vez, né, uma honra estar aqui junto com vocês. A gente está com a sala cheia, né, e pessoas aí muito interessadas em saber ainda mais hoje que a gente está com esses nomes tão incríveis aí da iluminação internacional, dos principais nomes aí da iluminação no mundo.
Então, vamos lá.
Até nervosa, eu estou meio
não é?
sem graça aqui hoje, porque realmente é uma honra estar junto da Michelle e da Janete aí. Se puder traduzir aí depois, Edson, para elas, manda um bilhetinho para elas aqui, porque a gente está realmente muito, muito empolgado, muito feliz com esse momento.
Bem, então, iniciamos agora o módulo extra da série Iluminação no Paisagismo, um programa de treinamento desenvolvido por uma equipe multidisciplinar da Interlight com o propósito de revelar, através da luz, a beleza e a exuberância da paisagem noturna brasileira, hoje com dicas estrangeiras valiosas, hein? Nós agradecemos aos presentes do Brasil e do exterior, amigos que nos acompanharam durante os webinars lá da série Interligar, tá? E também aqueles que estão chegando por aqui hoje. Obrigado pelo prestígio, esperamos que o conteúdo que produzimos seja bastante agregador aos seus projetos. E obrigado também aos amigos que estão aqui hoje, que fizeram as suas participações com conteúdo nesses webinars. Para quem está chegando por aqui hoje, tá, e gosta de conteúdo de iluminação, vai lá no nosso site, tá, com 57 conteúdos maravilhosos com expoentes da iluminação brasileira e mundial, como hoje, tá? Paisagismo, arquitetura, arte, saúde, tá? A luz tratada sob a ótica de grandes especialistas do setor. Vai lá no www.interlight.com.br e confira esse ótimo conteúdo, tá? Só fazendo uma rápida revisão, nós fechamos hoje com conteúdo extra, tá? Os módulos de iluminação do paisagismo, tá? Nós tivemos o módulo 1, como iluminar árvores, apresentado pela Lívia Gontijo, como iluminar objetos, arbustos e jardins verticais, que foi o módulo 2, o módulo 3, como iluminar caminhos e passagens, tá? E o módulo 4, que foi a integração de todas as técnicas. Hoje nós temos aqui, tá, a apresentação para a gente aprofundar nesse conteúdo, tá? Uma apresentação do curso do Untitled, tá? Da Janet Moyer, um dos maiores nomes do mundo sobre o assunto. Recapitulando, assim, eu sei que dispensa apresentações, mas vamos lá fazer a apresentação novamente. Jean começou com sua carreira de designer de iluminação em 1976, tá? Com profundos estudos sobre iluminação nos meados da década de 80, estudos esses que conduziram à escrita de um livro sobre o assunto mais utilizado no mundo, tá? O The Landscape Lighting Book, que agora está na 3ª edição. Já leciona desde a graduação e fundou o International Landscape Light Institute. Atualmente já está terminando os vídeos para sua nova plataforma educacional, que a Garden Light LED está produzindo, chamada Learn Night Light. Eu estou sabendo, né, Edson? Tem uma fofoca de bastidores, não é fofoca, né? Na verdade, notícia de bastidores, que a Janet tem um livro novo. Isso, Edson?
Edson está sem áudio.
Edson, você está sem áudio.
Ah, tá. Então, a Janet estava nos contando que ela está lançando um novo livro, The Art of Landscape Lighting. É um livro de cases, de projetos de sucesso, né, ao longo de toda a carreira da Janet. Ela está lançando um livro ricamente ilustrado, né, com uma série de cases, projetos, exemplos, né, de como iluminar paisagismo. Esse livro está disponível nas principais livrarias online, como Amazon, e outras aí pelo mundo, né? Então, pelo próprio título, vai ser fácil achar esse livro, né? Inclusive aqui até nessa página que está sendo compartilhada, há um desconto aí de 20% em cima desse livro.
No
Né?
nosso link, tem lá no chat, o nosso suporte já colocou o link para acesso ao livro, tá? Quem quiser conhecer mais. Mas veja
bacana.
depois da palestra, tá bom? Tá? Assistam a palestra, tá? Agora a gente vai começar a palestra em alguns instantes. Mandem suas perguntas. A Janet está super feliz, né? Edson, vamos compartilhar essa nossa alegria com a Janet, né? Porque ela quer responder muitas perguntas, tá? Então,
Sim.
mandem suas perguntas. Para a gente diminuir delongas, vamos assim ao padrão, né, diretor, senão ele fica bravo comigo, tá? Esse evento é realizado pela Interlight Iluminação, fabricante nacional de luminárias arquiteturais, 100% produzidas no Brasil, que oferece 5 anos de garantia em toda a sua linha de produtos. Produzido pela nossa equipe multidisciplinar de engenheiros, arquitetos, time comercial, saque e marketing. Hoje temos conosco Lívia, apresentadora dos módulos 1 ao 4, Edson Jacal, que contribuiu na tradução técnica do conteúdo que apresentaremos em instantes. E o recado do sorteio, que é o recado final, tá? Durante a apresentação, postem lá no Instagram, tá? Uma foto de vocês assistindo a palestra, marcando o perfil @interlight.oficial. Concorra um squeeze da Interlight, tá? Vale tanto no Stories quanto no feed. Diretor, vamos iniciar? Tá? Vocês assistiram agora a palestra de Janet Moyer e Michelle Miller. Anotem suas dúvidas, tá? Mandem no QA ou Q&A, como preferirem, tá? Que está logo aí embaixo da tela do Zoom. Teremos no final um bate-papo com respostas às suas perguntas. Uma boa palestra.
All right. So, hola, boa tarde, bem-vindo Brazil. Hello, welcome Brazil. I'm Michelle Mueller. Today, Jan and I are so happy to share this time with you to reveal the incredible work that is Learn Nightlight. I am not only the producer, but also a student of Learn Nightlight, the educational series by legendary author and designer Janet Lennox Moyer. These 2 courses are available through the Illuminating Engineering Society and are located under Education menu tab in the IES Learning Portal under Partner Content.
It's dark every night, giving us the opportunity to create a night environment for everyone to use and enjoy. Recently, I learned about Henry E. Butler, who founded the GE Lighting Institute of Luminology in 1913 in Lynn, Massachusetts. I had never, neither has anyone I've spoken with since learning of Henry. Henry, in the documents of his GE career, introduced me to a pioneer in using light as art, who wrote, in order to obtain a harmonious illumination scheme, it was necessary to visualize the lighting across the scene as a whole. Walter de R.C. Ryan, chief of illumination for the 1915 Pan-Pacific Exposition in San Francisco, among many other amazing productions, wrote these words to drive home our responsibility to continue care for how people experience night. Paraphrasing him, pre-exposition, there were many who maintained that the public would not be attracted except by the glare of exposed brilliant sources. However, the lighting scheme and scope of the exposition called for a radical departure from this previous practice. For the first time, illuminating sources lost their identity. The lighting of the exposition immediately disproved this theory, and a strong psychological appeal was made by the highly artistic lighting effects. We need to continue today his example of making the night amazing. 108 years later, I am still trying to encourage us practitioners to strive for Mr. Ryan's call to make the night comfortable and beautiful.
In the 20 sessions on landscape lighting design, you will find Jan a prolific educator, a lyrical storyteller. The step-by-step lighting design instruction features 300 hours of video, hundreds of photographs and charts of Jan's hands-on project experience gained over a half a century. A detailed follow-along workbook accompanies each session with decades of project photographs. Learn Nightlight is one of the only landscape lighting design training programs available. It's unlike any other lighting training experience. Jan and I are passionate about supporting lighting designers, opening new career doors, and sharing the limitless possibilities this information provides anyone in the lighting field. We all have a story. This is a story of an educator that fell in love with learning and teaching landscape lighting and everything that surrounds it. There is not another human on this planet that has more knowledge on the subject than Jan, which is precisely what makes this course so unique and powerful.
We designers have the opportunity, perhaps the responsibility, to connect people to their outside night spaces. Landscape lighting is a complicated process, starting with composition. We have to imagine the scene using all the design tools to create a comfortable, enjoyable scene, starting with gathering information, considering both views from the inside and throughout the garden. Part of this process is deciding what to reveal and what to hide, balancing brightnesses levels between areas and elements. Keep in mind how all objects reflect light differently, and that affects our composition. We need to plan how people will experience the space, including how they will move through the space, and providing lighting clues and cues to help get to their destination and back again at the end of their stay. Visual compositions can be formal or informal. The same space can be treated differently, but we have to hide glare at all cost. Once we have planned how we want people to experience arriving and using outdoor spaces, we need to select the equipment to create the ideas in our head, determine the initial location in the field after planting and other site elements have been located, then make the solid connections with the power distribution system that will accommodate not only the lighting today, but the changes we often can't even conceive of that will occur during the life of the garden. Make sure our control system, our cables, and our transformers can respond to whatever happens. Then once the system is installed, the most important work begins. We have to aim the lighting to create the scene we envisioned and provide the property with maintenance guidelines to keep the system functioning over many years. The aim tasks that need to be done after dark make the lighting scene move from great to art. These tasks can include moving the fixture, re-aiming, changing the output and or beam spread. Sometimes a tiny change makes all the difference in creating a scene that make people gasp with amazement and then enjoy for years. In our second session, we look at the idea of considering a sense of depth in our lighting scene. We can shorten or expand a space by the way we introduce light. Here, lighting the forest beyond the porte cochere shows an ending to the space. We can use uplight or downlight, grazing or wash, soft or strong. All these options affect the overall composition. Providing the information of a visual destination or an ending point helps humans understand a space, allowing them to enjoy the space rather than worry. Nearly every project has its own considerations. This session looks at many different situations to help you understand how depth changes a night space. Session 3 discusses lighting of buildings. Sometimes a building is the star of a scene, sometimes it isn't. We need to think about how to show it to serve its function as one element in the overall scene. It can attract attention, express civic pride, identify the entry. Light can show texture by grazing a surface, as I did here with this building. Light can enhance form, create an emotional response, or give a message. Here, the entry courtyard is left dark, saying, "We're not expecting guests tonight." We can light a forest canopy behind a building to fill in its roof line or downlight a roof from an overhanging tree. As with all elements, we have to think about and plan how to include structures in the overall scene. Sculptures can also be the star or one in a series of elements. We can use uplighting, downlighting, soft light, strong spots of light, as here, keying in on the emotion of the man and the bird. Add color, again, as here representing the fires of hell during Dante's Inferno when the eagle saves the protagonist. We always want the lighting to enhance the art and its story. Often the location is critical, as it can be in many aspects of lighting, and surprises like these shadows on the wall can either add or detract. Reflectance or color of surrounding elements has importance here too, and art is not always a sculpture. It can be a plant, a structure. While often the star with multiples, each individual may have less visual importance and require very similar treatment to all the others, making a mass statement. The fifth session concentrates on lighting objectives and its expression, using the IES 3 basic objectives of providing safety to avoid injury, revealing obstacles to offer a sense of security, and providing aesthetics, allowing people to enjoy the night. This introduction slide for the session shows the need for light to help people understand how to experience this space, how to move through it and return back safely, all while enjoying the night. Introducing light outside a window completes an interior space and reconnects you with the landscape. Softly downlighting a border planting bed creates safety and magic to the space. One stunning example is how Michael Hooker used deep blue light on the walls, ceiling, and walkway, announcing the House of Blues Hotel at night in Chicago. Simply lighting a boundary or downlighting a walkway through foliage becomes art to express the personality of a space. Session 6 covers my favorite part of landscape lighting, understanding the plants. This is a huge topic. We need to understand each plant's characteristics, form and size, along with both change over time as the plants grow, leaf density and overlap, foliage color, appearance change through the season. Is flowering an important visual aspect, and what is the plant's role in the ensuing composition? We need to decide, do we uplight a canopy from underneath or from outside? Do we uplight or downlight the trunk to visually connect the canopy to the ground? When do we front light, backlight, or use multiple fixtures to show the three-dimensional character of a tree? We need to consider all the plants, not just the ones we plan to light. The better we understand the plant palette for a project allows us to introduce light to capture each plant's character within its compositional role. To understand each plant, we need to know the genus, species, and variety, the Latin names for the plants in the garden, whether lighting them or not, to ensure that we know growth characteristics. Will a plant we are not lighting eventually interfere? And as the plant we are lighting grows, do we need to plan for adding more fixtures as it expands from a 2-meter wide canopy to a 25-meter wide canopy? Will the tree be pruned, and how does pruning benefit lighting? A tree grouping can be stunning, as can one specimen tree outside an important window. In session 7, we discussed the importance of providing view out through windows and from one exterior to another throughout the garden. A landscape element or scene becomes another art piece in a living room or any room in an office or house or office, showing the way along a path with no path lights, culminating in a lit garden bed backed up by a greenhouse, provides a soothing view, or can act as a visual cue, drawing a person along a path to the next section of a garden space. Especially in the front, we need to provide a clear way to the entry door and allowing guests arriving the experience of the garden that you have created. To understand each plant, we need to know the genus, species, and the variety. Oops, I went backwards, I'm sorry. Session 8 takes us into our body to understand the amazing connection between our eyes and brain as it impacts our vision. Here we can see the effect of light on this door and the overall scene from day to night. We need to work with the way we see light in low levels, the different aspects of sight that our rods and cones provide us, how our eyes age as we do, and how their functioning changes, how color perception is affected by changing from photopic to mesopic and down to scotopic vision levels and shifts as we age. How we can use change in brightness to make a statement of visual focal point or show uneven stares. We need to understand how we see color, what color a given light source provides, and how that affects the way we experience a space. How light source color temperature shows the elements we light, the effect our lighting scene from a light source shifting color over hours of usage and due to light loss from lumen depreciation over time. Session 9 shows us what shadows can do. Remember that they can be overwhelming and destroy a space, but shadows can also add to the magic we create when used carefully. Shadows can be projected onto the walls by either uplighting or downlighting through foliage. Shadows can help define a space, and the associated darkness can hide elements we don't want to show. Shadows can be projected through foliage or patterned materials, either strong or subtle. They can be made within a tree's canopy by the variation of light across the canopy, showing texture on the bark. Another favorite topic, session 10, lighting water features, is probably the most difficult to do well. There is a fine line between sparkle and glare, whether we uplight a big waterfall at left or let a group of trees reflect in a smooth pond surface on the right. Not only do electricity and water not get along and people can get hurt, but the accessories, junction boxes and wiring in a body or water can be visually detracting. We need to understand the falling water coming over a smooth weir with no air bubbles to catch light in that water, or falling water over a rough surface full of air bubbles, creating a very dramatic lighting effect. We need to understand that more than any other type of landscape lighting, all of which require careful location, aiming to create the best effect. With underwater lighting, it becomes vastly more critical and more expensive. The physical force of water determines the type of fixtures we choose and often creates the need for many more drawing details to get the installation not only functioning properly, but lasting many years. A technique I created that I call shore scraping visually connects a scene with varying soil level using fixtures located in a body of water shining back onto the shore surface. Water fixtures can be showy stars. Water features can be showy stars or quiet places to escape to or contemplate within. We all love being near water, and at night, it is a different experience.
Learn Nightlight is not only entertaining, but also a practical tool that has been purpose-built to help you become an expert. With 2 courses in 20 sessions, Jan sets herself apart by demonstrating her knowledge and how she has earned her status. You can do the same by learning and implementing these critical topics into your designs. A quick recap of Learn Nightlight. It's a comprehensive lighting design training tool. It's taught by a professor and author of hundreds of lectures. Jan has been published in more articles for institutions and trade publications than any other expert. Course 1 and Course 2 feature 20 sessions on critical topics, over hundreds of hours of content, 20 training videos, image galleries, course workbooks that are a downloadable PDF to follow along, learning outcomes, and quizzes for each session. It's beneficial for beginners to advanced level learners who like to learn fast, responsive for multiple devices, and great for organizations and teams. Continued education credits are recognized by the Illuminating Engineering Society, the IES-CEU, the American Society of Landscape Architects, LACES, and the American Institute of Architects, AIA-LU. After completing Learn Nightlight, you will understand the art and science of lighting design and begin to create incredible lighting scenes for your clients. Since working with Jan in 2017, my lighting knowledge has significantly grown. My project exposure and influence have dramatically increased. I am incredibly fortunate and can choose the lighting projects I want to be part of and the clients I want to work with.
Session 11 shares my strong belief that downlighting, when possible, provides the appearance we are familiar with from everyday sunlight. I always start my design planning by considering what and where I can use downlight. Its effect covers more ground and doesn't get knocked out of adjustment. Due to the way trees grow, stems and trunks continually expand outward. A lighting fixture mounted in a tree will always be at that location. You can highlight a sculpture, water feature, other plantings, or produce a very soft wash along the ground plane, giving viewers context for the scene. Finding the right mounting location requires careful consideration so that the fixture isn't obvious either day or night, and that needs to include glare shielding. If you are lighting something from a tree, you need to uplight the tree or keep light away from the foliage to not make the tree look bad. And of course, downlighting isn't limited to mounting in trees. It can be from a roof, an eave, a trellis, almost any structure. It provides the layer of light that makes a space feel normal and expansive. Session 12 covers issues about fixtures, the device that holds the light source, allowing us to create the lighting effect we desire. That's all. They need to hold up against 8 types of corrosion that they are exposed to, not allow their finish to degrade, not allow water ingress to cause the socket and or the lamp to fail. They need to withstand rain, wind, gardeners and their tools, vehicles, even animals, all kinds of abuse. They need to do their job and blend in with the architectural and landscape design. We need to know how to best locate and attach them in the field. We need to know all the adjustment points and make sure that they can and are tightened to hold the all-important aim we choose to create the lighting effect. We need to know when to call in an arborist and how to work with whomever is installing a fixture, whether at or below grade or up off the ground. We are the expert and need to make sure they know how to do the wiring installation and how to mount the fixture correctly. Always the last step is to adjust the glare shield to maximize the effect and minimize any distraction from the fixture's glare. Session 13 looks at wiring, which provides the infrastructure that allows our ideas to come to fruition. We need to understand how much power will be initially required and the initial amount required throughout the life of the project. Part of landscape is change, so our power system needs the flexibility in control sizing, low voltage transformer sizing, and wire sizing to make changes and additions over time. My experience throughout the world is the weakest link is wire connection. We need to understand how and educate installers to use a quality connection that won't fail. Many electrical contractors are not familiar with the intricacies of wiring for long-term landscape lighting. We need to understand and help them understand. Not all projects have full documentation, even on my projects, but all projects need a complete transformer schedule, updated through the initial installation and over the project life. The transformer schedule is only as good as the information on it. And 5 years from now, having an updated schedule saves you time, making all the changes and providing the maintenance needed. Did I go backwards again? Sorry. People need to move through gardens, making session 14's content, pathway and stair lighting important. It is not as important, though, as most other aspects of landscape lighting, so it should not take preference in most cases. Typically, I light around paths and stairs, ensuring that the scenery surrounding them is lit and allowing for some light to spill over onto the path or stairs. As you can see in this scene, I have no path lights. I try to avoid path lights whenever I can, as they don't provide the best lighting. That said, there are always times that path lights and step lights will be needed. We need to plan good locations. We need to plan good locations to help people navigate an unfamiliar space while enjoying it. This includes identifying grade changes or objects that can hinder movement, whether we use fixtures at grade or down lighting. Part of path lighting is providing a visual destination, typically vertical lighting on an object like a door, a sculpture, or other feature. Path and stair lighting planning needs to dovetail visually with the rest of the scene and not distract from more important elements while still providing visual information to keep people safe as they walk through a night garden space. Session 15's deciduous trees are those that lose their leaves and go dormant for the winter season. They need to look good in their dormant appearance and when their leaves and flowers return during the spring and fall. There are so many variations to consider, like this Foucaria or Aquatillo, which is not a cactus or a succulent, but living in the desert, it spends a lot of the year dormant and quickly responds to rainwater at any time of the year, producing leaves and flowers. Deciduous plant forms change from dormant to in leaf. My experience is that if we plan lighting for the dormant form, it will work when the plant or tree is with leaf. And we need to confirm that, as it depends on more than one characteristics that we need to understand about deciduous plants. Its initial size and how that will change over time. Its initial form and how that will change over time. Growth rate, leaf color, shape, translucency, density, leaf overlap within a canopy, and then flowering, color time with or without leaves, important or inconspicuous. All these characteristics affect how a plant or tree will look lit. This information helps us understand which lighting techniques to use and when. That selection will be affected by the plant's role in the composition, important or background element. My first book, the landscape lighting book, includes various tree shapes and how to approach them. Context affects how we light an individual or grouping of trees and whether one is accentuated as a focal point or not. There are basic rules to understand. Washing a tree with one fixture will show its shape, but flatly. While using multiple fixtures, a minimum of 3 typically shows 3 dimension. Knowing the rules and all the details important for lighting a deciduous tree opens up options for us to use for each tree in a scene. Foliage color changes throughout the year, and this affects the lighting scene. In this garden space, I planted the orange-leafed maple to the left of the existing mature maple with the yellow fall leaves, and then in the front to the right, I planted the maple that later in the fall gets bright red foliage. So for a few weeks, these 3 trees become the changing focal point. Once they drop their leaves for the winter, they are back to being just part of the scene for the rest of the year, including spring and summer. We need to think about all the plant characteristics and the changes trees present over the seasons as we plan the initial lighting. Next, session 16 looks at trees that don't lose their leaves at one point in a year, the evergreen trees. These can be losing some of their leaves throughout the year. They are multiple types, including hardy trees, palms, conifers, and cactus. All typically have dense canopies, making them more difficult to light from the inside until they get very old or have some pruning to open up their canopy, if they even have one. Like deciduous, they can be singular or part of a grouping. Some hardy trees get massive. Here, notice I have lit the little bit of trunk that you can see, visually tying this tree to the ground. They may be the star or just part of the background. In this session, I discuss all 4 types and the issues to be aware of when lighting all. As you will see in this session, the same specimen may be lit multiple ways by different designers and still look good, all depending on the lighting vision. Here, the designers counted on this Paisaia pungens, Colorado blue spruce's foliage color to distinguish it from the trees all around it, and grazed up the outer edge of this canopy, making a strong statement about this tree. Environmental conditions throughout this vast world of planet Earth brings us to session 17's content, snow. Much of the earth gets snow in the winter. Snow changes a landscape, and there is nothing as magical as watching snow falling onto lit trees. We need to consider all the changes a landscape experiences in a year. Snow shows best on trees with horizontal branches, and often the effect is fleeting as days warm up and the snow melts. When a client has a home in an area with snow, we need to consider the typical depth of snowpack that stays for the entire winter. Over 3 feet or 1 meter of depth, we need to consider having uplighting raised up, not to be lost for the entire winter, or not need to be used with still having a solid lighting composition. Advising clients to turn their lighting system on during a snowstorm melts the snows to limit the accumulation. Oh, sorry, I went back again. This even works with LED, though it takes longer as light sources don't create as much heat, LED light sources. Here is a neon bone from my New York garden that melts its own snow cave around it. And consider, neon produces less light than LED. In session 18, we need to think about how gardens continually evolve over time. Lighting needs to be planned from the beginning, starting with that first meeting with your client, to respond to all the changes the garden will experience, even though none of us knows what will occur. These changes include how the garden appears completely different from day to night. Too many times our gardens are simply lost in the darkness, and all we see is a reflection of our interior space and windows at night. The kind of change we see in this image during the middle of landscape construction without warning from any team member explains why we need to stay in touch with all the team members to be prepared to know about changes that will affect lighting. Some changes, like this one, require rethinking the lighting from the beginning. Other big changes may have no lighting repercussions at all. Here, the walkway has been reconfigured to a new layout from an earlier layout, and then a fence and gate get added. The downlighting that lit the entry walkway after the reconfiguration still works with the new fence and gate requiring no change. In session 19, we think about the importance of planning for mock-up and aiming sessions. We need to plan everything we want to try or do and pack up all the equipment we will need, all the snacks that we will need, who is coming, and the task sequence. Make a checklist with the tasks, in order in which they will be done. I like to start with the most difficult task. Team members need to know their role in the process. Guests need to understand that while their input is invaluable, they need to let the lighting team ask for the feedback when ready. Electrical contractors need to be on site in any case power issues arise. And since they only want to climb a few rungs on the ladder, arborists have to be prepared for the tasks required of them. All the tools you can imagine, and often ones that you do not think you will need, should be brought, just in case. Plans with markers to note information learned and changes made, along with getting the equipment like this articulated lift truck and all climbing ropes in place during the day, helps things go more smoothly once it gets dark. Mock-ups help us move on to the next phase of project construction, while aiming sessions complete the design installation. And this brings us to the importance of maintenance. Session 20, our last session. The main value of landscape lighting documents is for maintenance and future additions and changes. As a guide, it will help a client understand the task needed to help a landscape lighting system function at its best. A page like this one from a maintenance set clearly shows the importance and task of keeping glare shields set to minimize any fixture brightness. As with mock-ups, bringing all tools you can imagine and having spare parts for everything on the project saves time and money for you as well as your client. It also helps your client think you are a really valuable asset to their property. Instructions like applying anti-seize lubricant each time you need to open a fixture puts that necessity in the maintenance team's head. This application saves time opening the fixture in the future and adds longevity to the products on the project. Maintenance is not simply changing out dead lamps. It starts with keeping the aiming doing the job. It may require retightening screws for all the fixture movement locations after re-aiming at night, or it may mean moving a path fixture or any kind of fixture due to growth. Lighting maintenance is not intensive, but keeping up with it means that the system will last longer and keep your client happy. This information is meant to help you do the best job that you can. Guidelines like this often have exceptions, and all of us have differing viewpoints. If you still have questions of any kind about landscape lighting issues, Michelle and her staff at Garden Light LED are always available to assist you, and so am I. I look forward to seeing your beautiful landscape lighting all over this country and the rest of our planet that you design, install, and maintain. Thank you.
For me, it's like an aha moment. It may be moving a fixture a half an inch in terms of aiming, but I see it and a little smile just comes across my face. I worked on this project called Walnut Creek Manor in Walnut Creek, California. We lit all the pathways so they could see how beautiful their home was. Eventually, I realized that not everybody knew everything that I knew. So then I started writing the landscape lighting book. And what happened was that I started getting calls before the book even came out. I had become known worldwide. There was this little voice in the back of my head. The little voice kept saying, "You have worked so hard, you've gained all this knowledge, you should share it." I like every scene in a garden to feel complete, allowing your eye to move from one area to another and almost feel like you've been told a story. Our society understands how important landscaping is. Walking the site helps us get a sense of how the space feels and the relationship of elements to one another. And I start visualizing what could be done in my mind. You've got to communicate what you actually design to the installers who are not in your brain, and they never will be. We need light to scare away the darkness. We've made this big leap from old technology to LED. Change is going to happen. We have to accept LED. We have to let go of our old technologies. LED brings things to landscape lighting that we've never had. What is it going to need today, and what will it need 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now? So that when your client calls in and says, "You know, this tree just doesn't look like it used to," you can fix it. Hi, I'm Janet Lennox Moyer. I'm a lighting designer specializing in landscape lighting for 43 years.
Uau!
Muito bom. Estamos muito felizes e orgulhosos por apresentar esse conteúdo, tá? E até, assim, lendo legendas, eu acho que fica um pouco complicado da gente redigir tantas perguntas, né? Tá? Redijam suas perguntas, postem aí no Q&A ou no QIA, como preferirem, tá? Para que a gente coloque agora e a gente inicie o bate-papo. Antes da gente iniciar o bate-papo, tá? Eu quero lembrar a todos para que vocês agreguem aos seus projetos os diversos recursos que a Interlight pode oferecer. E se você precisar de alguma ajuda sobre dimensionamento, aplicação, enfim, qualquer dúvida que tiver, mande uma mensagem para a gente pelo Instagram, enfim, por todos os canais que temos. Temos uma equipe técnica, tá? Aqui parte da equipe técnica, Edson, Lívia, tá? Para prestar esclarecimentos, enfim, porque a gente quer fazer parte de todos os seus projetos. Também muito importante, lembrando, tá? Para concorrer no Squeeze da Interlight, marque, faça uma foto e poste no seu Instagram, você assistindo essa palestra marque a gente, tá? Com o perfil @interlight.oficial. Vale tanto no feed quanto no Stories. Nós sortearemos e publicaremos amanhã no Instagram o nome da ganhadora ou ganhador. Vamos para as perguntas. Eu acho que eu estou falando demais. Quem tem muitas perguntas legais para colocar é a Lívia e o Edson para fazer a nossa tradução tanto das perguntas quanto das respostas, não é, pessoal?
Exatamente.
Vamos lá, primeira pergunta. Gostaria que elas falassem um pouco sobre o IRC, a importância do índice de reprodução de cor no paisagismo. Uma pergunta que veio das nossas redes sociais.
Janet, firstly, we are very happy with your presence here, your speech about landscape lighting. Very emotional moment for many of our attendees, and we have a question. Our social media people wants to know what's the importance of a CRI, the lighting sources of and CRI in your projects. How to deal with.
In landscape lighting, I don't believe that CRI is as important as it is in interior lighting. What's really important is that the light source has a broad range of color because plant material has such a variation in color.
Janet disse que ela não acha que o índice de reprodução de cor na iluminação paisagística seria tão importante quanto na iluminação de interiores, né? O importante é que a fonte de luz tenha uma emissão de luz larga, né? Ou seja, que cobre toda a faixa, né, de luz visível, porque a própria vegetação ela é muito dinâmica, né? Ela necessita dessa faixa ampla de luz para cobrir aí todas as nuances de tonalidade e da estrutura das plantas, né?
Certo.
Nice.
Uma outra pergunta aqui. O LED trouxe grandes mudanças na percepção da luz. Você acha que falta algo para o LED trazer o resultado que tinha antes com as lâmpadas halógenas ou as outras tecnologias antes do LED?
Good. Janet, another question, very interesting question. We had a big change with LED technology.
Yes.
Do you think LED has a lack of any characteristic or feature that you had in the conventional lamps that you don't have here with LED lighting?
Actually, as much as I love our old traditional lamps, we have some things with LED that we've never had before. Because the LED starts with a bright blue LED color, it's much better at showing the beauty of the foliage and the flowers in our gardens. And many manufacturers right from the beginning have been able to give us dimming right at the fixture, not through the control system, so that we can set exactly the right amount of light just by tuning the amount of light coming out of an individual fixture. And they've given us the ability to change the beam spread right at the fixture from a narrow spot to a wide spot. So as much as I've gone kicking and screaming into the LED world, we have to accept it, and it is really giving us some benefits that we've never had before.
Ela diz que a tecnologia do LED trouxe algumas situações interessantes, como, por exemplo, a luz azul, né, a presença da luz azul no espectro, né, já que todo LED tem o azul, né? E isso é interessante para você iluminar determinados tipos de vegetação, determinadas folhagens, né? Sem falar com as possibilidades de variedade de facho, dimerização ampla, né? Para você colocar a quantidade certa de luz na vegetação, né? Tudo isso foi proporcionado pela iluminação do LED, ou seja, ela enxerga que o LED trouxe mais benefícios do que o sistema anterior convencional.
A próxima pergunta é uma pergunta do Eduardo Becker. O Edson, só que como é uma pergunta bem ampla, eu
Sim.
acho que seria mais interessante você já traduzir ela lendo no Q&A, por favor.
Ah, é? Vamos lá.
É uma pergunta do Eduardo Becker sobre a iluminação de maciços, ofuscamento. Acho que está bem grandinha aqui, acho que vai ser mais fácil você fazer a tradução direta da pergunta que foi enviada.
Eu preciso achar.
Posso ler para aproveitar para mandar aquele abraço para o meu grande amigo Eduardo Becker.
Lê que é mais fácil.
Que até já foi um dos grandes palestrantes que já passaram por esse espaço. Primeiro ele comenta, lógico, que ele adorou a iluminação da vegetação e da arquitetura, mas muito bem focada, quase que a vegetação como uma estrutura individual, somando-se a um conjunto. Ele coloca, pois bem, no Brasil, um clima subtropical e tropical, nossa vegetação tende a ser mais densa, até uma escola de Burle Marx. E hoje em dia está na moda um paisagismo muito denso, quase sem espaço para iluminação de piso, topo. Como iluminar maciços de iluminação sem causar ofuscamento ou equipamentos que concorram com a vegetação?
Você pode repetir a última parte? Como iluminar?
Maciços de iluminação sem causar ofuscamento ou equipamentos que concorram com a vegetação.
Eu acredito que ele tenha, na verdade, seria maciços de árvores, né?
Talvez. Janet, there's a trend here in landscape lighting in Brazil. We have a large density of trees, of plants. Then sometimes it's hard to have a lighting fixture to illuminate, to lighten this high density trees. And sometimes you have a lot of glare because you have to choose powerful systems, and you have a glare with this kind of lighting fixtures. How to deal with this high density trees and plants, and how do you see this approach?
So you're talking about a high density of plants at the ground plane?
Yes.
Okay, so one of the ways to deal with that is to use what I call an adjustable stake. So it starts out at maybe 9 inches above the ground and can go up to 4 feet above the ground. So it can be placed within the dense ground plane planting and be up at what I call the shoulders of those plants, so that it still doesn't show from viewing angles. And I really haven't ever found a fixture that you can't. Do you want me to stop so you can say that?
Can you repeat again your explanation?
Yes, yeah. So if you've got density at the ground plane, I use a fixture that you can move the fixture up on an adjustable stem. From about 9 inches up to 4 feet or so. Okay. And why don't you say that, and then I'll tell you the rest, because it's a lot.
Ela diz que ela usa muito estacas ou estruturas onde ela pode colocar iluminação em diversos níveis, né? À medida, provavelmente, em que a vegetação cresce, né? Mas ela pode ir dosando, colocando isso em níveis mais altos, né? Até vários metros, de forma a evitar o ofuscamento, né? Se a gente considerar a iluminação só baseada no piso, né?
And then regarding the glare, I have never found a fixture that cannot be shielded from glare. If the manufacturer doesn't provide a glare shield, then we can make one up with bendable metal that we attach to the fixture. But we really need manufacturers that have come from the electronics world that don't understand landscape lighting, understand that we need to shield the light sources. So as lighting designers, we need to be buying fixtures from manufacturers that understand that to keep this moving forward. We've made many steps backwards because of LED not being shielded properly.
Thank you, Janet. A Janet disse que ela nunca encontrou uma luminária que não pudesse receber algum tipo de proteção contra ofuscamento. O ideal é buscar sempre fornecedores, fabricantes de iluminação que tenham uma visão, né, uma consciência do que é iluminação de paisagismo e que proporcione, né, nos seus equipamentos algum tipo de proteção visual contra o ofuscamento. Quer dizer, isso vai de encontro a usar fabricantes que têm qualidade, têm noção do que é iluminação, que sempre esse pessoal vai ter uma solução anti-ofuscamento para a iluminação paisagística.
Let me say one more thing.
Claro,
when I was in Brazil, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago,
yeah.
I got to see some of the gardens, and there were some very, very tall trees.
Yeah.
And that doesn't scare me at all. It doesn't take much at night. Our eyes are very good at seeing a little bit of light, and going all the way up, let's see, hundreds of feet would be like 100 meters or 70 or 80 meters. It just doesn't take much. You might need to use a narrower beam spread to get up that high, but it just doesn't take much. So it's not really a challenge.
Ela esteve no Brasil alguns anos atrás, né? Ela viu árvores muito grandes, né? E altas, e usando sistemas de iluminação, né? Com o foco bem concentrado, né? E não tem nada de mais nisso, né? Você pode usar esse tipo de iluminação que não resolve o problema, né?
O Edson, obrigado pela resposta aí, teve uma pergunta bem interessante da Ingrid Lima.
Sim.
Ela comenta sobre os projetos apresentados, né? E ela fala, é interessante perceber que a sua luz não é muito marcada. Apesar de estar ali, está focando, mas sem marcar, quase difusa. É um conceito seu para obter a amplitude?
Okay. Janet, people are asking you, they realize in your pictures and in this presentation that you have a kind of a diffuse lighting. It's not a spot lighting. You can graze the lighting over all the wall of trees, but not a specific short beam. Or something like that. They realize that you use a very diffuse lighting. Is this a concept of you? It's a way that you found out to lighting landscape, or it's a technique or something like that?
Gotcha. There's a couple of points to that. The first is that I do want what I would call a cohesive composition. So I want soft fill light between focal points or secondary focal points. But there are still either an individual tree or a group of trees or a focal point of some kind or multiple focal points with soft light combining them or connecting from one thing to another.
Na verdade, ela destaca, né? Ela usa o termo, né, de iluminação de coesão, né, no projeto, onde ela tem realmente uma luz mais geral, vamos dizer assim, mais difusa, mas ela consegue pontuar elementos, né, que necessitam ser destacados, né? Então pode ser um grupo, uma árvore específica ou um grupo de árvores onde ela quer dar um destaque maior. Aí sim ela utiliza uma luz mais fechada, mas de maneira geral, né, o geral ela está usando uma luz difusa, né, para fazer a base e destacando elementos importantes onde ela quer chamar a atenção.
Tem mais perguntas aí, Ricardo?
Você está mutado, Ricardo.
Sorry.
Então, parabenizando aqui a tarefa complexa do Edson de traduzir esses termos e explanações tão técnicas.
Muito bom, muito bom.
É difícil mesmo.
Temos algumas perguntas aqui. Tem uma que eu não posso me esquecer de fazer, tá? Assim, e daí eu vou. Aí eu quero aproveitar que minha vez eu vou fazer duas, tá? Como que eu me inscrevo no seu curso, Janet?
Janet, the people are asking how to subscribe in your course. You have a link. We received a link from Michelle. Yes, yeah. They sent you us a link. You can share after the presentation this link to our audience.
Michelle, you respond to this, please.
Yeah.
You're muted.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. After the presentation, wow, I really want to learn some Portuguese. Thank you so much for everything. And the subtitles were beautiful. Yes, if you are interested in taking Learn Nightlight, you can log into the Illuminating Engineering Society, go under Education, and type on Partner Content. And you'll see the Learn Nightlight icon, and it's pretty self-explanatory. So just log into that, and then hopefully Ricardo and Edison, you all will share the link that we shared with you as well. But also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I know Jan, and I love this about her, is always available. She always would love to talk to anybody. So sorry if I'm giving you full access to Jan, but I'm also available as well. You're more than welcome to reach out to me, and I would be happy to walk you through anything.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you very much. Michelle disse que está no site do IES, na aba Education, Educação, e tem uma subaba de parceiros, né, co-participantes, e lá vai encontrar esse curso. Provavelmente, digitando o próprio tema do curso, que é Learn Nightlight, vai ser fácil achar isso no próprio site do IES. Mais perguntas?
Muito bom. Sim, eu pedi duas. Eu pedi espaço para duas.
E eu tenho mais uma.
Eu posso primeiro? Porque a pergunta que não quer calar.
Lots of questions, Janet. Lots of questions.
A pergunta que não quer calar, assim, acho que nós vamos fazer a pergunta pela quinta vez nessa série, Iluminação do Paisagismo. Fabiola, muito obrigado, eu adorei a pergunta. Fabiola Costa Santos. Janet, qual a sua opinião sobre o uso de luzes coloridas, azul, verde, laranja, no jardim?
Janet, what do you think about using colorful sorts of lighting in your projects, like green, red, amber, and so on? What do you think?
If you've seen any of my work, you know that I'm not really a fan of using color. In my nearly 50 years, I think I've used it on several projects. I believe that plant material especially, but also building materials, have their own color, and it's really beautiful to just see that color. And there are always exceptions. If you're having a party or a big event, then using color brings a lot of festivity to that event.
Janet não é muito fã do uso de cores no paisagismo. Logicamente, se você tiver um evento, uma festa, né, algo festivo, aí sim você pode usar o recurso das cores, né, para esse tipo de evento. Mas, de maneira geral, ela não é muito apreciadora. Nos últimos 15 anos, ela pouco usou as cores nos seus projetos.
Lívia, você me dá permissão só de eu colocar um comentário aqui do Fernando Mazetti, lá de Buenos Aires, tá? Que ele primeiro elogia a apresentação, ele elogia a apresentação e coloca aqui o que você pensa a respeito do RGB no paisagismo.
Janet, we have another question. I think is related with the last question. What do you think about RGB lighting. I think it's the same, but yes.
It's a similar question.
Yes.
The great thing about RGB is you can really dial in the color of white that you want, and you can change from one area to another or from one time frame to another.
A vantagem do RGB é que você pode sintonizar o branco que você deseja, né, de maneira mais adequada para o tipo de vegetação que você está querendo iluminar, né? Mas não necessariamente usar a cor, né? Mas usar o RGB como forma de criar o branco. E variações, né, do branco que você puder criar.
Muito bom, temos mais perguntas aí, Lívia?
Sim, o Eduardo Becker fez mais uma aqui, e ele fez um comentário sobre como a iluminação dela é coesa e muito agradável, que tem a sensação ali que ela tem influência do cinema ou vice-versa, né? E ele gostaria de saber sobre, já que foi falado de cor, agora é sobre temperatura de cor. E a utilização de duas temperaturas de cor, seja para diferenciar núcleos de vegetação, duas temperaturas de cor diferentes. Seja lá um 2.700 para um 4.000, ou um 3.000 para 4.000, se ela trabalha com isso dentro dos projetos dela.
Ok. Janet, our attendee, Eduardo Becker, is saying that your project, your design is very cohesive. It's very, yes, it's like a cinema, like a moving picture. Yes.
That gives people an amazing place to be in at night.
Yeah, you understand. And he asking about the color temperature of the lighting. What do you think about mixing two types of CCTs in the same project? What do you think?
I think you have to be very careful when you do that. I typically use 3000 because it's really good on plant material. It's not as good on brown trunks. 2700 would be better on brown trunks. So that's a good time when I might mix. If you're going to mix, you have to be really careful to make sure that you don't lose the cohesion, that it doesn't start to tear the scene apart. But it doesn't have to, so it's definitely possible.
Ela diz que ela usa muito o 3000 Kelvin, né? Tomar cuidado, por exemplo, com os troncos de cor marrom, né? Que nem sempre isso pode iluminar tão bem, né? E manter essa coesão, né, do projeto, né? Com o tipo de estrutura que você está iluminando e a temperatura de cor. Mas, assim, o que eu entendi, ela mantém assim, o 3000 Kelvin como a cor de luz, né, primordial nos projetos dela.
Ok. Bom, então é isso.
So, more questions, Ricardo?
Ciderleide Dati. Como lidar com as questões de manutenção e equipe qualificada para manter a iluminação sempre ajustada com a variação de tempo, crescimento das plantas? Existe um treinamento com a equipe responsável pelo paisagismo do local?
Janet, the next question is regarding maintenance, because we have to ask you about this because here in Brazil we have a lot of problems with this issue. The maintenance is not so good. It doesn't exist in Brazil, I think. But how do you do in the US with the maintenance? How to train the maintenance people, how to show the importance of this task in the lighting, landscape lighting?
Maintenance is really important because if a fixture's not working, then our scene doesn't look good. And so it really starts with good installation to begin with. the electrical connections are the most critical. And so they have to be solid connections. It can't just be wire nuts. It needs to be a more solid technique that you can see in this Learn Nightlight session and in my book. Then during actual maintenance, once the project is done, the way I like to get people involved is to have the maintenance team work with me during the installation and during the aiming process, so they understand what is important and how to fix it. We also give the client a manual that shows what are the issues that need to be addressed and how to address them. So, and it really is important to stay in touch with your client so that over time they can realize that they can count on you to come back and help them. And it's not like you have to go back all the time. One of the things that's important, and probably very important in Brazil, is to blow out debris from the fixtures when the normal maintenance of the garden is being done. But other than that, it's more, you can go once or twice a year, or maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and that will be enough.
Ok, thank you. Bom, ela diz que todo esse processo, né, nos projetos dela, começa primeiro com a instalação elétrica. Então, uma instalação elétrica bem feita, né, bem robusta, conexões elétricas bem feitas, né? Ela traz o pessoal da manutenção junto com ela, enquanto é feita a instalação, ela acompanha, e o pessoal enxerga ela fazendo as focalizações, né? E ela vai mostrando os pontos de importância necessários, né? Então, tudo isso, sem falar que ela fornece um manual, acho que isso é uma dica, né? Bastante importante, que ela fornece um manual de manutenções necessárias no projeto dela. Então, isso acho que já mostra para o proprietário, né, a necessidade, né, o como e quando fazer essa manutenção. E ela diz que muitas vezes esse processo de manutenção pode ocorrer 2 até 4 vezes ao ano, né? E pelo menos o jardineiro limpar a sujeira, né, de folhas na frente das luminárias já é uma grande coisa.
Muito bom, muito bom. Bem, agora nós falamos, são 8h18, aqui no Brasil, aqui em São Paulo são 8h18.
8h18.
Imagino, em BH também deve ser, né, Lívia?
Sim.
Mas eu imagino assim que para outros lugares do mundo que a gente está transmitindo, assim, já seja talvez um pouco mais cedo ou um pouco mais tarde, enfim. Bem, nós esperamos que os módulos de iluminação no paisagismo, a série de webinars da Interlight, tenha contribuído com seus projetos, né? Afinal, aqui Lívia, Edson, que participaram e contribuíram muito nessa construção, né? A gente fica... Eu também estou orgulhoso, eu participei da apresentação disso, né? Muito orgulhoso pela conclusão, assim, fechar com chave de ouro. Foi maravilhosa a Janet Moyer.
E diamante!
Não é? Não é?
Ah, sim.
Traduz para elas aí, Edson.
Sim, sim.
Janet, we are finishing our event today. Would you like to thank you so much, Janet and Michelle? It was a great presentation, very helpful, very informative to our attendees. We are very happy. It was amazing subject to close our series of our speeches regarding landscape lighting. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you for the answers, and I hope to see you again in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much too.
Queria saber se por acaso elas têm algumas considerações finais.
Tem áudio, a Michelle. A Michelle está sem áudio.
Sim, sim. Isso é importante.
Janet and Michelle, do you have any considerations, the last words in today? Would you like to say something?
Thank you all very much for coming. We're happy to be with you and hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Muito bom, com o agradecimento da Janet. Eu devo lembrar que nós estamos com o link para que os interessados ingressem e se aprofundem nesse conteúdo maravilhoso que elas apresentaram aqui essa noite, tá? Nós, né, Lívia, agora, por favor, suas palavras. Eu sei que você está muito emocionada com a conclusão desse trabalho.
Muito obrigado de coração aí à equipe Interlight, né, e a todos os participantes pelo convite de ter participado desses 4 módulos aí, e esse final, né, com chave de diamante aí sendo fechado, incrível, né, e muito obrigado, Ricardo, aí pela parceria ao longo desses 5 meses, né, em que a gente esteve juntos aí para a gente conseguir transmitir esse conteúdo com tanto carinho, com tanta informação técnica, com tanta dedicação para todas as pessoas, centenas de pessoas que estiveram conosco, acho que até mais do que centenas, né? Dentre os 4 módulos aí, talvez milhares de pessoas que tiveram a oportunidade de assistir conosco. E a gente repete que esses módulos eles estão disponíveis no YouTube e também no site da Interlight, né? E em breve aí vai ser disponibilizado também uma compilação aí de toda a parte técnica para que o pessoal vai ter acesso aí.
Edson, seu momento abraço, Edson. Você vai mandar um abraço?
Abraço a todos os participantes, a todas as pessoas que fizeram suas perguntas, foram muito relevantes. Espero ter estado à altura aí da tradução, né, de ter dado as respostas certas, e agradeço a Lívia, né, pela participação, o Ricardo também, e estaremos em breve aí em outros eventos.
Bem,
acho que a Michelle vai falar.
A Michelle.
Michelle.
I was on mute, so that was good, but
Yeah.
thank everybody, really. Thank you for the translation and the invites for everybody, and thank you for your interest. We are in love with the subject, and Jan's just iconic. I love learning from her, and you can see why through the presentation.
I have a last question. Last question.
Last question.
Assim, se por acaso eu me inscrever no seu curso, tem legenda em português?
Não. Já falou que não.
Não. Poxa.
Mas assim, o curso, pelo que eu entendi, o curso é ricamente ilustrado, né? Ricamente ilustrado, com muitas imagens. A pessoa recebe um livro, né, de trabalho, né, do assunto, vai estar escrito em inglês, mas, né, depois pode ir lá no Google e ir traduzindo, né? Mas talvez no futuro, né, aumentando aí os brasileiros, né? Eu posso, o Vicente está dizendo, eu posso fazer as legendas do curso, né? Eu ganhei em dólar.
Eu acho que é bom traduzir para elas, assim,
traduzir para elas o que está falando aqui.
Muita gente que deu risada da pergunta. Obrigado, Janet, eu fico feliz em divertir vocês.
Janet and Michelle, the people are asking about the subtitles of your course in IES. I think you don't have subtitles, but the subject you can also watch the videos and try to translate, or maybe use the Google Translator to, you don't have subtitles, Portuguese subtitles.
Yet.
Don't you? Yeah.
Is the key word. So we would love to support everybody learning, and yes, we are open to absolutely doing that.
Ok. A Michelle está dizendo que ela fica à disposição para ajudar, né, dar um apoio a quem quiser, as pessoas do Brasil que quiserem assistir, né, que ela daria suporte a isso, né, provavelmente traduzindo, né, provavelmente tem que estar em contato com ela de alguma maneira para receber esse suporte, essa ajuda, mas ela está se colocando à disposição para isso.
Não errei na minha pergunta, foi muito bom.
Tá.
Bem, em nome da Interlight, então, agradeço a presença de todos, reiteramos nosso propósito de colaborar em todos os seus projetos, iluminando também com conhecimento. Michelle, Janet, Edson, Lívia, muito obrigado. Uma ótima noite. Uma ótima tarde.
You.
Boa noite a todos aí.
Thank
Obrigado
you.
pela presença, pelo prestígio. Todos os presentes. Tchau.
Obrigado. Thank you. See you, Janet. Thank you, Michelle.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.